how do you prepare for this? Yeah, and of course, there are learning. Learning is required. You know, without learning, you can't do it. So you raised your hand when the question was put out, who will be our next treasurer, and you said yes. And then it sank in that you didn't have the slightest idea what you signed up for. At least that happened with me. At least was the case for me, but maybe you are fortunate that you have an accounting background and you're already familiar with accounting tools. Raise your hand if you have accounting backgrounds, because I don't have any, and if you have some, it's very, very helpful. On the other hand, it's not necessarily needed. Anyhow, how do you prepare yourself for the unexpected role? There's good information in the RI Learning Center. If you're not familiar with it, go into My Rotary and Google Learning Center, and you will find information out there. Matter of fact, most of this information I gained here for the presentation comes out of this learning center. And also, you know, the biggest resource is your outgoing treasurer. Ask him or her and look over his or her shoulder how things are being done, how the billing is done, how the money is tracked, and how reports are being handled. And yes, of course, this training session is helpful as well, and you are doing it, so I applaud you for that. Your role as treasurer. You know, you're not walking away with money. That's really not the idea. But on the other hand, as club treasurer, you manage your club's finances and ensure good financial stewardship by tracking incoming and outgoing funds and following your club's budget. You will collect and submit dues and fees, and submit fees to District and Rotary International.
Yeah, Rotary thing.
You have a lot of responsibilities, reporting responsibilities. You will report on your club's finances to your club board monthly, mid-year, or at the end of your term, and to the Rotary International and to the district. We also ask you hire a qualified accountant who is not affiliated with your club to review your club's financial activities. You want to make sure that everything is sound and proof, and make sure that your financial statements can be submitted to your club president and board. You also need to work with the Rotary Foundation and understand procedures and to ask club members for contributions, understand how to submit those funds to RI on behalf of your club. These contributions, we need to stress out, are strictly voluntarily, but you should strongly encourage your members to contribute to Rotary.
Let's see, Liz is asking whether QuickBooks has a specific chart of accounts for Rotary.
QuickBooks does not, but we will show you a chart of accounts at the end of the presentation, and you can follow that. Or I asked the outgoing treasurer of the district. She has several charts of accounts as well, so I'll give you that information. You can contact her. Okay, so, and at the end of your term, you need to develop next year's budget. That is a big job. You need to understand what's going on, and especially in time of coronavirus. You know, the expenses, the variable ones, you know, how do we handle our upcoming finances? So before you take your office, it's really important that you understand what's going on. So you really, you know, ask your outgoing treasurer, you know, what is your billing cycle? What are the line items? Which needs to be tracked separately? Because tracking separately means, and you can pull reports, especially out of QuickBooks. Itemized billing is the key to your financial reporting. If you can track individual members, like RI Foundation, it will make your job so much easier when you transmit the money. What software do we use? What software does your club have? Does it have QuickBooks, or does it have something else? Where are we meeting? You know, are we meeting where food is being served? Do we charge for meals up front, or do the members pay then and there when they come to the meeting? If we're charging up front, then you need to understand this for your billing. How do we collect funds? Do we take checks only, credit cards, or do we take anything else? Cash, who knows? Those are the questions your outgoing treasurer should be able to answer. What do we do if members are late for payments? Do we go after them? Do we extend their payment, or do we give them a deadline? So the procedures which your club should have in place for late payments. What do we do if we don't have enough club funds to pay our expenses? Do we have a kind of fund to go back to? Can we pay all our expenses? It's very important questions. And what is our financial history? How do we establish club payments to cover our costs? What are our fixed expenses, such as the dues to the district, to RI? For the big software, if we have software, we have fixed expenses. Club Runner costs money and QuickBooks costs money. And how do we allocate funds for our committees? We have the youth services committees, we have the members committees, we have our club services. You know, do they need money? Do they need money for badges? How do we commit to that? What about our administrative costs? You know, we have a secretary, we have maybe postage, we maybe pay for a post office box, maybe we pay for the chamber dues, which is $100 a month or more, at least in our area. And how do we pay for that? What are our ongoing costs? And also, where do we bank? What bank do we use? How much do we have in our bank account? Do we have a checking account? Do we have a money market account? Then you want to ask, you know, what do we have? Where's our ledger? Where are our checkbooks? Where are our receipts from last year and the receipts from the year before? Because many times you want to go back into last year's receipts and see what happened, or the year before. If you don't know exactly what's going on, you're saying, let me find out what we did last year. We talk about fundraising activities. Will you be involved in the fundraising activities or not? What's going on? And then how do we prepare for a financial audit? That's very important. We should do a financial audit at the end of the fiscal term. And then how can you work with your fellow club leaders to make sure that the funds are being managed responsibly? And one of the last thing is you need to update the signature requirements on all bank accounts for check writings. It happened in our club where we didn't even know where to do it, but you have to do it. Otherwise, you as treasurer, you cannot write a check or sign a check, or your incoming president can't sign a check. So there is a certain requirement by the bank you need to check with them. What are requirements to change the bank accounts? Any questions on this one, Howard?
One is whether or not clubs have two treasurers, one for the club and one for the foundation, and whether that's normal or not normal. And then another one wants to know about copies of the charts.
In our club, the foundation has a separate board and there's a separate treasurer and a separate secretary. So I think with regards to foundation, which is a 501c3, it has to be, I think, Howard, has to be kept separate, right?
Yeah, they have separate board. They have to have separate boards. They can overlap and be many of the same people.
So if they overlap, then you need to understand if there's an overlap, and if there's an overlap, you need all the information about the foundation as well. You know, what money do we have and how do we hand it out to what charities? Okay, so this is before you take office. So need to understand what's going on in your club. You really need to dig in, and it's, yeah, sometimes it's like pulling teeth. It really is like pulling teeth, trying to understand, you know, where are your accounting records, you know, where's your material and how do you do this and where's what. Now, during your fiscal year, it's when you maintain your club records. And then it's really becomes when the rubber hits the road. Now, most likely your term will start on July 1st and your club invoices need to get out. And I suggest that you and the current treasurer and your club's prior year's treasurer get together to construct your first bill. It's either for the first month, and I don't know what your billing cycle is. In our club, we bill quarterly, so we bill 4 times a year. And we are using Club Runner, and I don't know if everybody else uses Club Runner for creating bills. And Club Runner is, yeah, it's not easy to do, but once you do it several times, probably your first bills are not easy to do. Check with your treasurer, check with him or her, look over their shoulders. How do you do your line items? And a lot of questions are coming up. And then you're saying, you know, how do I bill everybody? We will have different members. We have corporate membership. What billing is there? We have honorary members. We have Rule of 85 members. We have young members, Rule under 30. And we have members with extended leave of absence and students, and maybe you have even other categories. So whatever the categories, you need to understand what they are paying. If they're paying only dues, if they pay for meals, if they pay for anything else. So you need to understand that. So once the bills are out and you send them, Club Romana sends it via email, and it has the opportunity, you have the opportunity, if after a couple of months, certain people don't pay, you can select those unpaid bills and send another reminder out to your members. Now that the bill is out, now you need to start collect the dues. And it helps. I noticed that when I collected dues, I kind of printed all my bills out in a hard copy, had it in front of me. And when people paid, I noticed on the hard copy that they paid, whether they paid in cash, whether they paid with credit card, or if they paid with check. It's good to have that hard copy in front of you. And specifically, if they pay with credit card, you want to list the last 4 digits of the credit card number. Because if you enter it into QuickBooks, it wants a reference key of the check, so you can track it in your QuickBooks. We also are using a Square reader, and I don't know if you're familiar with Square. Square allows you to take credit cards right then and there. You can swipe it, and the Square reader will read your credit card and put it directly into your bank accounts. Don't forget, Square charges 2.75% plus a 10-cent per charge. So if you pay $100, if somebody pays you $100, you're losing $2.75 plus 10 cents per swipe. It's not a little amount. It adds up over time, depending how many people pay with credit card. We normally encourage people, when we send the bill out, please pay by check, because it will keep our costs down. So there's no bank charge involved. Depending what chart of accounts you're using, you want to track payments against those line items on your bill. On our bill, we write on, pay for, let's say we have a dinner, we charge them for dinner, which is separate from the meal charges. We encourage them to pay for the Rotary Foundation, and we encourage them to contribute to our local foundation as well. So you want to track those items which are paid towards Rotary and to our own foundation separately, because this will enable you to pull reports. And then when you submit contributions to Rotary Foundation, you have the detailed report already. It will make it so much easier. And then, of course, you have to file your taxes. You want to keep your financial historical records in accordance with local documents. You want to make sure that you can. I have a book, or we had a book where by months we kept all the information on a monthly level. So then during your fiscal year, that's what you want to do, is you want to really update your board. You have a monthly board meeting. You want to update the board on your club's finances. In general, what you do, you might want to show your budget and the money against your budget, how you're doing with your budget, trying to showing you have your budget and you're 10% on budget or over budget, under budget. We'll talk about the monthly expenses. And if you are responsible for the fundraising efforts, you want to talk about those as well. And club meetings, you might be required to update your club members at certain meetings. In our meetings, we don't do this. And present a mid-year report at the annual meeting before the December 31st. I don't know if you do this. We don't do it. And I don't know why, but just kind of went by the wayside. So it's really understanding. I think you need to be on top of your financials continuously. You're probably spending more time on it than any other club officer, trying to get the books straightened out and trying to understand income and expenses.
Gunnar, there's a question back on the taxes here. Is the treasurer responsible for the taxes, or is there an accountant typically that does this?
Howard, you can answer that.
So in our club, particularly, we use an accountant in the club to file the taxes. In the US, you're required to file a Form 990, which then is that, and your foundation has requirements to file its own also. In Canada, there's a different form that needs to be done there for the clubs. So in most cases, the clubs are not charities. The foundation is a charity, what we refer to as a 501c3, where the club is a 501c4. The income's not taxable, but people giving money to it don't receive a deduction from it. And Canada has a similar structure with different numbers and different names for those two. But I think in many cases, an accountant is the one who files the 990. Although 990 is a very simple form based on your revenue letter. In fact, depending upon how much revenue you bring in, if you're under $50,000, it's literally a postcard that has to be sent in. So, but if there's a CPA in your club, they would be a useful person to help make that happen. More importantly, if you don't file your tax returns for 3 years consecutively here in the States, you will lose your charity notion. You'll no longer be an eligible nonprofit. So it's important that you stay on top of the filing of these forms.
So at the end of your term, you want to work with the incoming board to plan next year's budget. The board must write and present this report at the end of the year. And you need to hand all records over to the incoming treasurer. You also need to hire a qualified accountant who's not affiliated with your club to review the club's financial activity every year. If your club has a satellite, be sure to submit an audited or reviewed financial statement to your club president and board. So, I mean, the key to hire the qualified accountant is to make sure that no treasurer, we had a problem in our club that one treasurer was not honest and walked away with money. So we are very careful about that. And we want to make sure that, it covers you, and because then nobody can accuse you of doing dishonest stuff. If you have any questions regarding your role, you can email the Rotary Support Center, and they will confirm with you and help you if you have questions with regards to this one. Now let's talk about paying dues and fees. Rotarians are required to pay dues. And in general, what we do, we pay dues to our club, which are the club dues, which also includes the dues we owe as a club to the district and to Rotary International. The club then pays the dues to the district as well to the Rotary International. So this is a clear definition of who pays what and when. Okay, the club dues is really where you need to, how much does it cost to be a member of your club? It's probably a question everybody will be asking. You can probably answer that question. What does your membership cover? That may not necessarily clear. It might cover meetings, meals, speaker gifts, supplies, marketing effort, administrative costs, bank charges, pets. As club, we are supposed to pay for the president-elect to attend pets in Seattle. It's the end of February each year. The amount is around $600 to $700, depending on the registration, hotel, and meals. If you need to travel to pets, the amount will be higher. So if you're in Canada and travel to Seattle, you need to maybe add more than $700 into your budget. Many Rotarians question, what are the dues for Rotary and the district? Those dues have to be paid first before we pay the club dues. And in general, you can kind of estimate for RI and district dues is about $115 a year per person. So $115, if you have 20 members, it's $115 times 20. Those are minimals you have to pay. And we'll talk about the details coming up right now. District dues. The district dues, District 520 charges each member a fee to fund the district-sponsored activities like Rotary Clubs training. And I'm quite sure we paid right now for participating in this online training. This will come out of our district dues. We'll do youth programs event. Today it's an event. We had an all-day Zoom meeting and somebody has to pay for it. So we as members paid for it. Insurance, governance, expenses, etc. And those dues are normally due in August. District dues, here's the district dues. Per capita for this year we'll be paying $41 per year. Canada will pay $54 because it's of the exchange rate. Last year, Canadian dues were $54, and the exchange rate was $1.31 Canadian to $1 US. It depends on what the exchange rate is going to be this year. And the district will bill only once a year. Rotary International bills twice a year. RI dues. RI bills twice a year, and prorates dues and fees. The invoice will come in July and in early January. And we understand that the club, the dues that we pay to Rotary allows the Secretariat to provide quality and efficient support to Rotarians worldwide. RI dues and fees. Bylaws require that you update your membership fee, or your member data end of June and by end of December 31st. Your club invoice is calculated on the number of members in Rotary's database, and you should register new members and remove terminated members within 30 days or by January 1st or July 1st, whichever comes sooner. Membership is calculated based on the member's admission. For instance, if you remove a member from the club on the December 21st, but enter January 27th dates, the member will still be included in your list. So be careful when you add or delete members to your database. RI requires that you confirm your member list, even if there are no changes to your list. So you need to send a note saying, this is our member list. So what happens if you get billed incorrectly? Can you make adjustment? No, you cannot make adjustments because the bill is what the bill is. Invoices will be sent to clubs by the end of January and July. And clubs are due, the bills are due immediately. You cannot say, I will do it later. You can adjust the amount, nor can you delay billing. If you have not received an invoice by the beginning of February or August, you need to email Rotary, data@rotary.org to request a replacement. Include your club name and number and delivery address and fax number. But this club dues still must be paid even if you have not received an invoice. And here's some details of the RI dues. Members pay, this is the one for US. We need to translate it for the Canadian. $34 per member. We pay $1 per member for the Council on Legislation. We pay 45 cents for directors and officers insurance. General liability insurance, $3.33. And we have the mandatory magazine subscription, $1 per member. You will receive your invoice by the end of January again. I said this before. Any questions on this one?
We're going to have a couple of questions, not exactly this chart. One question was about gambling licenses for the raffles at meetings. I can speak to the state of Washington has an exemption that you don't need a raffle license if your total revenue is less than $5,000 and you're doing it to members. So you can't stand at the street corner and do it, but you could do it within a club meeting, do these raffles that we have, as long as your cumulative amount of money is less than $5,000, which would be pretty good if you could get $1,000 worth of that each year. Maybe a big club might have that problem, and you wouldn't need a gambling license. The other one, Larry McGee is also talking about the whole role of the audit and best practices and like, and the fact that Rotary International doesn't truly have a best practice, although they've got the training. And if you go to the training center, much of the things we're talking about and Good is talking about today is what they present in the training. So the fact that they don't publish it in written form, but they show it in their training kind of implies of what they are recommending as best practices. Larry also mentioned is that district dues, we used to pay a separate money for $5 for the conference each year, and that money now is buried within the original money that you see, or not buried, but included in that number. So Larry, thank you for that help. If somebody transfers clubs, does RI and district affect the payments? And the answer is basically you want to try and switch on a semi-annual, annual basis to avoid that issue. Rotary dues are paid in advance. So you are a member of your current club until the end of the 6 months. After that, if you switch clubs, you'll be included on their list and be billed as part of that. The district is somewhat similar in that area within the year. So it's not, the district or I does not prorate membership moving within a period. Are there other fees and benefits of members' dues charged monthly or semi-annual? Are there any benefits of doing it annually or semi-annual? And I think it's just purely the labor and the collections. And it depends a little bit upon whether you have meals or not. If you have meals, the number can be a sizable amount of money, and you're paying the restaurant on a regular basis, so you want to collect the money on a relatively regular basis. But whether you do it semi-annually is just so that the check would be obviously smaller, but then it increases the work for the treasurer. So that's a trade-off that a club has to decide.
Yeah, I would suggest, going down to a monthly, it's a lot of work for the treasurer. Quarterly is a lot of work. Half yearly would be fine. But, it's again, whatever your club has done in the past or what the new treasurer wants to do. And as Howard said, if you charge for meals, all of a sudden, instead of paying, $200 in a quarter, you pay all of a sudden $1,000 for a year or something. Mm-hmm. So it's a sizable amount of money if you have to pay for lunches or anything else.
I've got a quick question from Terry here about RI dues. Do they include other fees in the member dues? And I'm not quite sure the question. She showed what some member dues, we're helping fund the RI headquarters, the staff people there, right. The president there.
But Howard?
Yes.
The other items there, membership, members council, legislation, directors, officers, insurance. I'm 98% sure all of those numbers are incorporated in 3450. They have thought it important for us to, as they've increased dues in recent years, to have some sense of where some of those costs are. So there is not separate billing for those items.
Except the magazine has a separate bill line, I'm pretty sure.
If you say so, I don't remember that.
Gundy, you see a bill for
at the district level, we have nothing to do with RI dues. We don't see the forms or anything. So it's possible. I thought the 3450 was the total per half year. I just Googled it.
Yeah, I think so. You're right. I'm just trying to look it up.
It just is, we used to separate, Howard, the $36 and the $5 for conference. And right. Then in a recent year, we put them together and said, let's just make it 41 and stop that.
The other magazine bill you get is if you can choose to give your honorary members the magazine or not. And that's where you get billed for that if you give your honorary members a magazine, because they're not included in the membership number.
And they won't let you opt out. In other words, you can't tell Rotary, oh, we have 12 members that don't want insurance, or we have 12 members that don't want the magazine subscription. No, they don't do that. Everybody pays.
In fact, even if it's a spousal situation where the spouses are both members, they get 2 magazines.
That's correct.
Payment method. So who can pay? Any authorized member is in Rotary can pay. You can be the president, the secretary, treasurer can pay, and you can pay by check, credit card, whatever, wire transferred. RI will take anything. And so the key is really the payment is really due immediately. So the bill comes in, you write a check and send it over. You can double check your financial on your, see what you're owing. There's a current balance, and you go to the daily club balance report under My Rotary, and you find what you owe. Now we talk about what happens if your club doesn't pay. You have 120 days or 4 months to pay your invoice. If your club hasn't paid, your club will be terminated. If the club wants to be reinstated, it has to pay all outstanding financial obligation at the time of termination. You need to pay all membership dues that continue to accrue thereafter, and you pay $30 per member for a reinstatement fee. Then you need to complete and submit a reinstatement application and provide an updated membership list along with a list of current officers and their contact information. And then after 150 days, if you have still not paid, then your club will be permanently terminated and cannot be reinstated. Your club loses its name, history, and charter, and everything else. So If you, right now, I think if you really have a problem paying, I think you need to contact RI and discuss whether you run into financial problems. I would suggest don't wait until 4 months are over. Go and call up REI or call up your district. So here we talked about taxes. How I talked about it is before, that if you form the IRS 990 is a return of organization exempt from income tax. That has to be filled out by the 501c3. And Rotary clubs that are not registered as charity may have to file a T2 corporate return if they're incorporated or information from T1044. I have no idea what it is, but whoever is in Canada probably knows what it is, right? Now let's talk about contribution to foundations. So we have contributions to your club foundations, which is a charitable 501c3, and we use those foundations to hand out money, grant monies to special projects and scholarships. If your club doesn't have a charitable foundation, you can ignore what we're talking about it. Then, of course, we have the Rotary Foundation, which then, and without the Rotary Foundation, we wouldn't exist, right? It will transform our gift into services projects around the world. Club foundations. Club foundations, you want to ask your members to contribute to your club foundation on a regular basis. You could include it as an optional line item on your invoice and asking them, do you want to pay so much money to the foundation? It's all voluntary. You can't force people to pay into the foundation, or you can ask for a legacy bequest. What you need to do is you need to track the club foundations, because you want to send out at the end of the calendar year a tax receipt to contributing members.
A couple back questions real quick. One was the IRS report in the United States is due in November. It's due 5 months after our end of our Rotary year, so that's when that's due. And then I think you touched on this before, is that Rotary bills twice a year in July and January, but the invoice doesn't show up until sort of the end of the month, despite the fact they want it paid right away. They'll put it due. So they want it paid immediately upon receipt. Okay,
the Rotary Foundation are critical to our missions. We are a global network of millions of neighbors, and we basically create and take action. I believe we have a shared responsibility, so we want to contribute to these funds, promote peace, fight disease, support education, grow local economies. And you can read up the annual funds, the polio funds, the World Fund, or disaster response funds. I think that's one we are using right now for COVID-19. Important that we make contributions. Again, they're all voluntary. You cannot force your members to contribute to those foundations. There are several ways your members can contribute to these funds. They can go directly to My Rotary and contribute there. And you as a treasurer do not need to track those contributions because Rotary does it itself. But if a member contributes to the foundation and to the club, which then has to be tracked by you because you need to submit those funds to Rotary, it needs to be done by the end of our fiscal year. I suggest you do it definitely before June 10th, because it will be then reflected in the recognition summary. When sending in donations, you need to use a multiple donor form if there's several donors. And I have a page, and RI will generate individual tax receipts. Here's the multiple donor form, and I have a link at the end of the presentation where you can print it out. You can list the names of the members who contribute, or if you have too many people, you can write up an Excel spreadsheet and attach this to this cover page. If you don't have, if there are 20 members you can list on the other end, it's easier to attach a spreadsheet. Okay, now we have to come and need a budget. That's really the fun part of it, right?
Let me just interrupt you again for another question here. Or actually, Larry McGee, who is actually the district finance chair, can talk about, we talk about timing of RI, where they want the money directly. Larry can talk about district dues and a special opportunity or special availability this year.
The Finance Committee met recently, and we are aware that some clubs are very concerned about all of the upheaval around the virus. So this year, this coming year, you can choose. We'll bill you at the normal time, about the same time that we bill RI, or I'm sorry, that RI bills you using the RI numbers, or we'll bill you in September using your roster as of September 1st.
Okay.
We have several clubs that have taken us up on that because they feel that there's uncertainty as to the membership. So now you need to know that we asked the district governor to call Chicago and see if RI would be willing to be flexible, and the answer was no.
Okay.
So you should not expect any change in RI dues processes, but the district will do that if you wish. Roan Blacker is on this call. Roan is the incoming district treasurer. If you let one of us know, I'm Larry McGee, or Roan, we'll delay your district until September.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Gunda, one other question on the form for the foundation. Can that be done online?
No, unfortunately, it cannot be done online. I tried it many times, and it should be done online. You need to print it out. It's a PDF form, and you need to fill it out by hand. So developing next year's budget. Your current board needs to determine the likely incomes and expenses to ensure. Now with COVID-19, it's just a big, and you just mentioned it, it's a big, we don't know what's going on. What should be included in this year's budget, next year's budget? Discuss it with the current treasurer board, what should be included, not included, how do we go about it? Do we have a reserve fund if we don't have one? It's just, you know, all those big questions. How many members will be going, will be leaving? It's really when we make the budget assumption. COVID-19 is giving us a terrible headache. How many members will be leaving? And we don't know. It's a new, with Zoom meetings, are we having more members, new members? Will we be adding, how are we adding new members? How do we get to them? Are we inviting them to the Zoom? Will we be holding meetings, physical meetings with meal charges or not? You know, what about visitors? Will we have visitors come in? It's just, I don't even know how to answer that. And it's just, everybody is struggling about the same thing. And what are the additional expenses? Will we have Zoom fees? And we understand that Zoom can be bought. We get a 20% discount if we sign up with Rotary. I just got a license. I paid $120. It's a yearly license. And yeah. It is just, I mean, making budget assumptions is going to be a challenge for everybody. This is a sample budget, what we put up in our midday. We talked about, you know, this was before Zoom, before COVID-19. We talked about the operational line items, the charitable line items, miscellaneous income. So we kind of all break down the member meals, membership dues, visitor income, happy bucks. Can we do happy bucks while we're doing Zoom meetings? Do we have a 50-50 raffle? We don't know. We probably could do happy bucks and somebody collects the money and eventually when we see them in person, they give us a check. Who knows? Expenses, will we have meal expenses? If we do Zoom meetings, we don't have meal expenses. Visitors, where we pay, we don't have visitors coming in. We collect the club foundations and the Rotary foundations. This will, whatever goes in, goes out. Here are the district dues. Will we pay for the district dues conference? Will it be Zoom? We have RI dues. And I broke down here the different items. If they're included in the dues, then this needs to come out. On the district dues, the president-elect training is your $700 if you don't have travel expenses to Seattle. Committee expenses, understanding what the committees are looking for. Your marketing expenses, that will be new and different. What are we going to do? Virtual marketing? We had some presentations this morning, which were very exciting. I heard about it this morning. Chamber membership, office supplies, post office rent. QuickBooks yearly fee is a yearly fee, and Club Runner is a yearly fee. So this is just a sample. If you want more samples, as I said, talk to Ron, the incoming district treasurer, or to Janet, the outgoing district manager. Any questions on this one?
Well, we did. Lacey Club says that they've got a way to do electronically the multi-club, multi-foundation contribution, so everyone can ask Ken to, or ask how to get that done. And then The other one is that there are special rules about nonprofit accounting, and it does not really focus on that. And there's a recommendation that we try and have a class just on nonprofit accounting, and that's something that we will take into consideration. I'll leave that up to the training people. But it is clearly a specialty. But then again, we have 90 clubs that many of them face that issue.
Okay. As I said before, I'm not an accountant, nor am I a CPA. So here are a couple of helpful hints. Club runner, use your bills, you use your dues and billing. Payments, we use Square. And as I said before, Square costs you money. And QuickBooks, we use QuickBooks. It's affordable, lets you track income and expenses. The yearly fee is about $180. If you buy it, the desktop version is about $300. It's a one-time cost. The online version is $180. Not easy to use, but if you're the treasurer, you need to get into it. Unfortunately, I can't help it. Here's some links. My Rotary is a good resource. Rotary 5020 is a great resource. Here's a learning center where you can learn about your role as treasurer. Here's a multiple form you can print. The printable form is on this My Rotary EN Note 28991. Financial representative, if you have problems with your finances, talk to him or her. Questions about membership dues, it's out here. And regarding your invoice. So, I mean, there's a lot of information out there. It's just getting to it. It's a little bit cumbersome, but if you dig around, you might end up at the right place. Any more question and answers?
Hi, this is Rome Blacker. I've got a question for the treasurers in general of the different clubs. Past years, we've only accepted checks for district dues, and we're going to offer the ability to pay electronically. What is the preference of the clubs? Do you make, I know up in Canada, they're very accustomed to paying electronically and not by check anymore. That's my understanding. But the bulk of the people on the line here are from US clubs. How are you paying for RI dues and other of the significant payments you make during the year?
Our clubs, it's interesting. Gunda said you could do it any of the different ways. You could pay from a credit card or you could pay from a check. Our clubs don't normally have credit cards. So if somebody pays with a credit card, they use their personal one and they get reimbursed by the club. So, and then you've got to, it's not as efficient to work with the banks on a wire transfer. So
no,
I would say, yeah.
I'm talking about when the club makes the payment to Rotary International twice a year, or the club makes a payment to the
so
district.
The club has its own credit card, somebody personally has to do it.
I see.
And then they get reimbursed for it.
Well, don't the club bank accounts have the ability to make an electronic payment?
Yes, they do. Whether or not you're set up for it or not is up to the, I don't think our club has done electronic payments from our bank account just because we've never set it up.
Okay.
Thank you guys for listening, and now join up for the Aloha Happy Hour, right?
Thank you, Gunda.
Yeah, you're welcome.